to invite you to turn with me to the book of Proverbs in chapter 3. We will get back to Isaiah next week. But on special holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, at Christmas time, and even if well, so-called Halloween, but All Saints Day, the day of the Reformation, if it falls on a Sunday or close to a Sunday, I like to do something, one of the messages that ties in with why we're Protestant, why we're not Catholic, what was the change, and why is that important. And so I invite you to chapter 3 in the first 12 verses of the book of Proverbs. We find it falls in two parts. The first, the father is speaking from himself and his heart to his children, not just his son, but to his children. And the second one, part of it, in verses 5 to 12, he turns their attention and focuses upon the Lord himself. My son, my law, do not forget. My commandment shall guard your heart. For length of days and years of life, peace multiplied unto you. Covenant faithfulness and steadfastness do not forsake. Bind them upon your neck and write them upon the tablet of your heart. And you will find grace and good providence in the eyes of God and men. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and on your own understanding do not lean, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your path. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and turn aside from evil, and it shall be healing to your navel cord, and it will be drink to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, and with the first fruits of your produce, and he will fill your storehouses with plenty, and new wine shall overflow in your wine vats. The Lord disciplines, my son, those do not reject. Do not reprove his reproof. Do not loathe his reproof. For the Lord disciplines, or those whom the Lord loves, he reproves, even as a father, the son in whom he is well pleased. When we look at this proverb, it's the third of the father's appeals to his children. And he begins at the very first. There are rules that are laid down in the house, and every house needs to have them. There needs to be guidelines that the kids know, that our children know, that these are what we do. And in my house, they were pretty simple. In my house, you never disrespect your mother. Ever. You never talk back to mom. Ever. And so that was the number one rule. You treat your mom with respect, and if you don't, it's going to cost you. That was am I right? Yeah, that was the number one rule. You always honor your mother. And you don't talk back. That was the second rule. You couldn't be sassy and smart. You had to show respect in your conversation as well. You know, that in itself lays a strong foundation. And then in the law and in the rules, you always show respect and honor to older people. You know, I can't tell you how many times either I went to a pediatrician with Sarah, or I went to the doctor or pediatrician with Sadie, and go into a room, and you'd have these moms, and they'd have babies, or maybe they'd be pregnant, and you've got young men that are sitting there, and here they come in, and they won't get up. There's, doctor's offices rarely have enough seats. Am I right? And so the young men sit there in the chair, and the young women that are trying to calm down a crying baby, and maybe have one that they got in a carrier, and the young people are sitting there on their phone or doing something, but they will not get up to show respect. And that was always one. That when there is a young mother, or there is a mom with children, so basically if there's a lady, or there are senior adults, you get up and give their seat. And you can tell them that, but it has to be demonstrated by your own actions. So that my children always saw me get up first. And to stand in the corner, I stand a lot. Why? Because I learned over the years, you better get used to standing, because you're going to be standing a lot. Especially if you go with someone to the doctor. There were certain rules in the house. And there weren't many. If mom asked you to help with the dishes, then what do? You help with the dishes. If mom asked you to clean your room, which ought to be a given, but if she asked you to clean your room in a couple of months, you get around to it, right? It's like the guy that has the t-shirt. He says, you don't have to keep telling a man over and over. If you told him 6 months ago, he's going to do it. Isn't he? And so the reality is, you know, kids, you know, mom told me to clean the room, and I'll get around to it. You know, at the end of the summer, you know, we'll clean it up then. But the fact is that joking aside, we do have responsibility, and keeping those responsibilities, having those rules, and having those guidelines are things that direct us in life. And it says that the very commandments that your parents give you, the reason they set down rules, the reason they set perimeters, is because it guards you. It's that which stands as a sentry that guards, as it were, a city wall that guards your life, it guards your thoughts, it guards your affections. And so he says two things. It says, one, that they will guard you, but the first is that you do not forget it, in the sense that, oh, I forgot about it. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about forgetting by neglecting. Just not getting around to it. Not getting out there to do the responsibility. I think about in the Gospel of Matthew, and Jesus tells the story of a father that has two sons. And he goes to the elder and he asks his son to go out and work in the field with his servants. And the son said, "That's fine, Father. I'll be out there just a little bit. I'll go do it. Not a problem." And he goes to the younger son and he says to the younger son, "Son, I need you to go out and work in the fields today." The son says, "Dad, I just don't feel like it. I don't want to." And then later, as the day goes on, the older son never got around to it. He forgot by neglect. It wasn't that he intended not to go out to the field and to do that. He just forgot. He just neglected it. He didn't see it as important to get out and to do that responsibility, so he never got around to it. The younger son began to feel badly that he had told his father no, and he found themselves out in the field that day. Which one, Jesus asked the question, which one obeyed their parents? Which one honored their father? The first one or the second one? Well, initially we'd say, well, the first one, because he said yes. And the younger son dishonored his father because he told him no. But in their actions, we know that it's just the inverse, isn't it? Sometimes we're not perfect. We're not perfect as fathers. We're not perfect as human beings. And sometimes we do that. We find ourselves not doing initially the thing that's right, but getting around to it because we know that it's the right thing to do. And so he says, my law, the rules that we have set, don't neglect them. They're there for a reason. So before, with the children, before you can watch TV, before you can do anything else, you've got to get your homework done. Is that important? Bobby left. I'd ask her, but she's a math teacher. Is it important that the kids do their math lessons? I have teachers over here. It is, isn't it? Because if you don't do that, you fall behind, and once you fall behind some things, you never catch up. So when you neglect something, then it's costing you double. You'll always be playing catch-up because you didn't listen. It will guard you. It will be the very thing that guards your affections. But it also comes with a benefit. It reminds us of what Paul said in Ephesians when he tells the children to honor your father and mother because it's the first commandment with a promise. What's the promise? What's the promise that he gives them? That he reminds them from Deuteronomy. That you might live long upon the land. And what's he say? That if we listen to our Father, if we keep his rules, then what's it do? It gives us length to our days. Have you ever come to the end of the day and say, I just don't have enough time to get this done? And the reason we don't have enough time is either we never get around to it soon enough, that we procrastinate, or we just kind of dilly-dally about something else, and then all of a sudden the days come to an end and we didn't get everything done that we needed to get done. Or we just don't do it at all. It gives us length of days. We finish our responsibilities, we finish our chores in the afternoon. We've got all this time that we can, especially in the summer, all this time that we get to do something else because we got it done early. And it teaches us that. But not only that, it gives years to our life. And that's what Paul said. In order that you might live long upon the earth. So there's two: long days, long life, and peace is gained by it. There will be peace added unto you. That if you do that, your parents aren't on your back all the time. You're not always being taken outside the hallway to be chided. You're not disciplined. You're not having privileges taken away from you. If you do that which which you have been told to do at the beginning. So what are these commandments? What is His law? And He tells us specifically two things in verse 3. It is covenant faithfulness and is steadfast or loyalty. It's the fact that we continue, that we are reliable, that there's a fidelity to our actions, and that we show loving kindness. You know, one of the benefits, I think, from families that had 8, 9, 10, 12, 16 kids, or as my grandmother, 19, that when you have a large family, the older children have responsibility for the younger children. How many of you are the older, or maybe even in the middle, but had a sibling that came along late, and you were responsible, you were the free babysitter? This year, yeah, I see there's already hands going up like that. I'm looking over here, and they're not so old either, are they? That all of a sudden you're responsible for the younger ones. You have that responsibility. And that's a good thing, that it's not all self-absorbed, it's not all about me, but that we have this faithfulness, we have this loyalty to our family and to the responsibilities that we have. Covenant faithfulness is the sense that we have made vows, we make promises, or we have a relationship and we live up to that. And if you ever needed an example of it, just read the book of Ruth and look at Ruth's life in contrast with Orpah, both of them daughter-in-laws to Naomi, and how Ruth lived her life in contrast. The Orpah goes back and she just leaves the responsibility that she had in coming into this covenant marriage. That Ruth was there, she was steadfast, and she was loyal. And He says, don't forsake it. Don't abandon it. Don't leave it to the side. And that's what the commandment, the law of the Father is. That's what His commandments are. That's going to give them length of days and give them years of life and give them abundant peace. Is that they're the kind of person that lives and keeps their promises, and that they're steadfast. You know that they're going to be there. One of the problems that I am reading and also hearing from employers today is that they don't like to hire young people because they don't show up. If a young person, and I don't mean 16 and 17 necessarily, they could be 28. But if their friends are going to a party or they're going to the beach and they've been scheduled to work, they go to the beach instead of showing up at work. Well, how come? Because their friends are going to the beach. And we'll just get another job tomorrow, right? And so we'll just go to the beach today and forget that we walked away. This loyalty and the steadfast being, the integrity and fidelity and continuance, that we're always there, that you can depend on them. How important is that? Well, I think it's important to learn as young, because when you get married, if you haven't learned it as a youth, if you've not learned it as a young person, then you're not going to have those skills, you're not going to have those characteristics when you become a responsible adult, and you will be just as loose and just as flagrant when you have those responsibilities come, that you'll forsake them. Because that's the word, to abandon them and to forsake them. He says they need to be bound upon your neck, right here at the throat. And for the Hebrew, the throat was the place of its emotion, of its greatest affection. Right here at the throat. So that these things, these are the very heart and soul of you. You know, we look at our body and we say, well, our heart right here. But for them, emotions were either in the throat or kidneys. What happens when you've been asked to speak? You don't normally speak, and you've been asked to speak, or you're going to have to sing. Anyone that sings, what happens when you have to do a special? What starts working? Your kidneys. I mean, somebody that doesn't normally speak or doesn't normally sing, and they're going to have to sing, the first thing they do is right before they come out here, they head to the bathroom. Why? Because their kidneys start working. And so kidneys was the idea of emotions, because they function whenever you are under some kind of emotional stress. But our affections, you know, out of the heart proceeds, the treasures proceed out of the heart. Where do they show up? Where do they come from? They come from our throat. They come from our mouth. So that these things are the things we speak. They're the things that guide us. They're the things that lead us. And he says, write them upon the tablet of your heart. And so when we think about it, how oftentimes, I guess one of the things my grandkids and children have always maybe languished over is the fact that I have so many stories. And Kaylee's smiling, and Ethan, both of them, will tell you, oh, no stories today got long. And I pick them up, and am I right? Hold up your hand if I'm right, Ethan. Yeah, always telling him, a story. He goes, oh, we don't want to hear the old stories. I told him last year when he told me that, and he started telling me something he did the week before. I said, no old stories today, Ethan. Because that was last week. I need something today, right? But they're written upon our heart. They're the things that we're reminded of. They're the things that just keep coming up. I'm thinking about the ice cream over here. And I remember going to church with my grandmother in Arkansas. She had a whole row of grandkids. She was sitting at one end, and I had a cousin that's still a knucklehead that was sitting at the other end, and he was acting up. And she's trying to get his attention because she wanted to take him outside, but he wouldn't look. So she passed it down the road, and I was someplace in the middle. She said, tell Dean to go outside. I want to give him some ice cream. And it got to me. And when it came in my ear, I said, I want ice cream. Right in the middle of preacher's service. I want ice cream. So I went outside with him. And what do you think I got? One ice cream. And the reality is that I'll never forget that. But every one of us have those stories, the things that we've written upon our heart, they're things that we're reminded of. And we need those. We need those kinds of things. And I think about Psalm 23, and we all know that. We generally only hear it at funerals, but it's a psalm for life. It's not really a psalm that we should sing at the end of the life, but we ought to sing it about our life. And he says, you will find favor and good providence. You remember there's a line in Psalm 23, it says, he causes me to settle down and rest in the encampment of the righteous for his name's sake. Now, English translation doesn't come out like that, but that's what it means. He causes me to settle down into the encampment of the righteous for his name's sake. Which means that God leads us and brings us into a place that the people around us are a good influence upon us. That we find favor and we find God's providential care. Providence is that mysterious, hidden, invisible hand of God, where God leads us and guides us and he directs our course. And the Father wants him to know that if you listen to these things, they're so important because these are the ways that God has led you. Mothers and fathers in the life of children are important because these are the people that God has given to direct, to show, and to point, like we just heard from John and we heard from the choir, to point us to a better Father, to a greater Father that is our God. And if we do these things, our parents are directing us, then we will find that grace. We'll find what our name is, grace. We will find that. And we will find good providence. That instead of finding, as the tree says, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not good as moral or not evil in the sense of moral, but that things are right and things work and things are appropriate. We'll find that in the providence of God because God's been leading us for his own name's sake. And now we find at the end of verse 4 that he begins to turn his attention away from his own instructions and his own instructions to his son, to his children, to turn them to the Lord. And not only will you find this good providence, this grace, in the eyes of God and men, but now he turns and he begins to give them directives about the very nature of God. Verse 5, trust in the Lord. Verse 7, fear the Lord. Verse 9, honor the Lord. And then verse 11 and 12 tell what God does. God gives discipline. Discipline's not always the whip, is it? Discipline's to sit aside and say, this is how I want you to do it. This is the way I want you to go. Walk in it like the Holy Spirit does, as Jeremiah says. And the Lord loves. And so we look at the latter part of this, and the Father always pointing his children to the Lord and to God, into God's presence, that hidden hand of God in everything. So trust in the Lord with all of your heart. This is the third time that he's referred to the heart in this first 5 verses. And 16 times he refers to him as either you or your. 16 times. So he's addressing him personally. He's not talking in abstract thoughts as something that's out there that can be learned, but he's talking to him personally. Listen, this is for you. This is for you. This is for every one of us. That when we fear the Lord, when we trust in the Lord, when we honor the Lord, that if we trust in the Lord with all of our heart, and we don't rest upon what we have discerned, what we have come to understand in and of ourselves, and we acknowledge the Lord in the way that we walk, in the path that we walk in life, that we give, that we not, I think acknowledge is a bad way to translate it, know Him. That I know that God is there, that I know that God's leading me, that I see God present in this decision. I see God's presence and God's favor in this action, of this choice of which I am making. And that's what he's talking about. That as I'm going in this way, I know that God's in this with me. That I'm going in God's path. I'm not gone off on my own way. I'm not asking God to bless the decision I've made. I'm recognizing and acknowledging that I'm walking in the way of the Lord, and the Lord is there with me. And God will make that pathway straight. Someone has once said that if you want to know how crooked a stick is, stick a straight stick down beside it. God's path is straight, and all of it is always straight. This is the way walking it, the Holy Spirit says. And it's a narrow path, and it's a narrow way, a gate that leads to life. And God wants us to know that, to trust Him. And so true devotion to the Lord is where the Father's appeal turns. I can't be there all the time. I can't be every place my children are. I can't go everywhere with them. And when they grow up and they move out of the house, I can't be there to help them make every decision. They've got to trust in the Lord. And that's ultimately the goal of parenting, isn't it? Not that we just cuddle them and we keep them, and that we never allow them to go out and to live life and to trust God in that, but rather that we guide them so that when they do go out, that they recognize the Lord in the presence of all their choices. Then he turns and he talks in verse 7. And we saw on Mother's Day from chapter 1 that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of understanding. If we don't fear God, then we're not going to make choices based upon consequences, benefits, or is the other side of that. And he says, so don't be wise in your own eyes. At some point or another in life, we do gain a certain amount of confidence and wisdom that we think we know everything. But you know one thing, even having done construction, one thing I noticed, have you ever met a group of men that go around and build churches? Have you ever gone and been around any of those? Those guys are all retired, every one of them. And so you've got guys anywhere from 65 to 85, 90 that are framing churches. Now, I framed churches or framed buildings when I was in my 20s and early 30s. It's hard and heavy work. And you know what was said about the difference between the two? They work smart. And we work hard. A young person works like a workhorse. I can tell you, I work for a framer, and you didn't carry one or two pieces of half-inch sheetrock or half-inch plywood for the decking. You carried 4. That's 2 inches. That stuff's heavy. So all the back and joint pain that I have is because I worked like a horse when I was in my 20s and 30s, packing stuff up and down on the ladder. But old men work smart. And they don't carry all that stuff. And they work together. And they stand up a wall, a 30-foot wall or 40-foot wall. They'll stand up the wall, but they're doing it in pieces. And we try to roof the whole thing up all by ourselves. And we all pay for it because now we're doing it. And he says, so don't be wise in your own eyes. You don't know everything. Listen to somebody else. Listen to the wisdom that somebody else has, and then don't turn aside to evil, but fear the Lord. Job 1:1 reminds us that that's what Job did. We look at him, we see the wisdom of Job, and we see the perseverance of Job. And he says, fear the Lord and turn aside from evil. Turn aside from that which is the easy way or the bad way or that leads to bad consequences. And what's this healing? Verse 8 is troubling to interpreters. What is this healing to the navel? When did sterilization come in? When did they start sterilizing for practices? I mean, when did they start using anesthetic and sterile practices? I remember when Sadie was taking surgical tech that there's a proper way to put on the gown and put on the gloves, and there's a way to do it so that you're completely sterile. Why do you want to be sterile when you go to have surgery and open somebody up? What happens if you're not? Infection. We hear people being septic, or we hear about, what is that infection that you get in the hospital? All right, y'all know what it is. But, the staph. All these things come because of unsterile practices, don't they? So when a baby's born, what's the first thing that moms have to deal with? Isn't there a little thing that's attached here that they're constantly having to treat with alcohol? Because if it gets infected, then it could be, infant mortality can come because of an infection that it gets in its belly button, right from the beginning. And so I remember when the girls were little, when the grandchildren came along, one of the things you had to do is keep that sterile and always putting rubbing alcohol and trying to dry it up until it finally healed over, right? And so we are vulnerable from our very beginning, from our inception, with our navel cording, said it'll be healing. That if we fear the Lord, then at the beginning in life, that it will be like healing. David said in Psalm 22 that I have been cast upon you, Lord, from my mother's breast. Lord, you've always been my God. From the very beginning, I was hearing my mom sing and talk about the Lord. I remember as a child, Psalm 22 says, I remember the stories that the men told, the stories of Psalms. I think Richard Mullins sang that on a song that he had written, a boy like you. Stories like that make a man grow bold. Stories like that make a man walk straight. And that's what David said. It brings healing when we are most vulnerable. And have you ever heard an older person say, even my bones hurt? I hurt so deep even to my bones. You come in and people are talking, especially the older we get, and people will say, oh, my, in fact, I look like an old crippled old man if I've been sitting for 30 minutes. And I get up with my flat feet, my feet hurt. And in fact, I think I did that on Mother's Day. I was, after working, physically working all day the day before, Hadley was over there, and I was looking around and groaning and looking around, and what's Hadley doing? She's all been groaning. Why? Because that's what she saw Papa do. He said it'll be drink to your bones. Right now, drink to the bones, or refreshing to the bones. How many of you at my age or older take bareback body, or take a leave, or take something at night because your joints are hurting? Anybody besides me? Yeah, you drink to your bones, make your bones feel better. And that's what the fear of the Lord will do. And he tells us, honor God with our wealth. To treat God as worthy of this, give him respect. Again, growing up in Indiana, basketball was pretty big. Football was too, but basketball was really big. And so if Michael Jordan, I get names messed up all the time, but if Michael Jordan came in here, how many of you want to get his autograph and a selfie with him? Come on, be honest. Yeah, we would want to do that. I think it was David Platt just a couple weeks ago. The president shows up at church. How many of you want to get even if you don't like him, how many of you would like to get a picture with, I've never met a president face to face. So how many would like to get a picture with a president? Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. The closest I've ever been to a president was watching Bill Clinton fly overhead when he'd gone to Dallas for his brother's wedding. That's about as close as I've ever been, probably as close as I'll ever be. But to have him show up and to come and pray for him, wouldn't that be kind of a special thing for a president to show up? Any of them. Maybe it's two from now in the future, or maybe it's two from before. We honor people because of who they are. Well, how do we honor God? Well, we give him the sacrifice of praise, we say. But what about our wealth? Do we give God from our resources? Do we honor him with the way that we spend our money? And from the head of all of our produce? From all of our labor, do we give God that? If we don't, we're not showing him honor. We're not making him heavy. We're not making him kabod. And he says, and there's a benefit to doing that. It's just like Malachi. If you've ever heard a sermon from Malachi, Bring all the treasure into the storehouse and see if I won't pour out for you a blessing so much you can't hold. It's saying the same thing. That he'll fill your storehouse with plenty and your new wine vats will be overflowing. That you'll always have an abundance if you honor God. So he told us three things that we do towards God. The first, we trust him and we fear him and we honor him. And he talks about what God does in our life. That God, first and foremost, God disciplines us. If he said, my son, the Lord discipline, don't reject it. Don't look and say, I'll have no part of that. Discipline. What is discipline? Discipline's not getting a spanking all the time, is it? But discipline's learning to sit and be still and to listen. It's learning lessons. I think one of the greatest experiences in my whole lifetime has been to be around old people. I like old people. Don't you, R.D.? He likes to say that, so I know he does. But you ever spend any time at the nursing home? I've been going to nursing home since 1978. I was saved in January, and in February, some people from church drug me off on a Sunday afternoon to take my guitar and go sing and play. I didn't even know any Christian hymns at the time, but we went and had a good time, and I've been going to the nursing home ever since. I've met some wonderful people. Literally, some wonderful people. People with talents. What was the fellow's name over here at Oak Grove that could paint with his mouth? You remember that one, Walter? But you know who I'm talking about. You know, here's a guy that can't do anything, but he can paint, you know, just like whatever that girl's name was, that painted like that was paraplegic. You know, I go to the nursing home. I meet George Mendenhall, and he had served in every European country in World War II. He was short-statured and he spoke 7 languages. So he didn't go and travel with the army. He went in and he was, I guess you could say, a spy and intelligence gatherer. And so he went into Italy, he was into France, he was all over Europe. And so to sit and listen to him when he was at the nursing home and to talk 7 different languages fluently, just like he was native born, that was interesting. I'm telling you, it was really interesting. Or an elderly lady that lived up here someplace in the Piney Woods, and because she had polio when she was a kid, they didn't send her to school back then, and so she stayed and lived with her grandmother, and her grandmother taught her to cook and how to sew. And she lived so far back in the Piney Woods that the little town that they had didn't even have roads. She kind of a horse truck to come in and out. She had 3 sons, and her husband left her during the Great Depression. And so her brothers would give their wore-out clothes to her, and she'd remake them so that they'd fit her sons. And she'd take feed sacks, and she'd make those into clothes. And when they started putting the seam on the outside of blue jeans where they had the red thread in there, she started doing that. So their kids would have clothes like that. And then when she finally, here she is, single mom with 3 boys. And then she finally went into a nursing home, not because she had to, but by her choice. And the whole time she was sewing for the people that were in there to provide for them. Do you think that's not interesting? To listen to a woman that was born in 1904 and spent her life in great hardship and yet never felt the hardship of it. And then to be able to honor her in her funeral service. I'm telling you that when we look and see the discipline of the Lord, he teaches us that wherever we are, that we learn in that place, in that hard place, that we learn from it. We don't reject it. We don't flee from it. Don't reject it, my son. And don't loathe it when he rebukes you, when you do something wrong. If you have to deal with it, then accept that. Why? Well, the Lord disciplines us, but the Lord loves us. And he loves those he loves, he corrects, he reproves, just like a father does in a son, for his delight is. We have to love our children like the Lord has loved us. And that means that we don't reject them. They don't always do what we want them to. None of us did we? I think God, my dad, did not know everything I did, or I probably wouldn't be here today. Thank God that I didn't have to tell him everything I did. I also thank God that before he died, him and Mom sent Francis and I an anniversary card. And my dad, and it's one of the most treasured cards I've got. Dad says, I've never been more proud of a son. And Dad died a year ago on Wednesday. Love your dad while you got him, because he won't be here forever. Listen to him. He's got wisdom. I know when you're a teenager that he's the dumbest person in the world. But when you're about 35, you're going to find out that he's got wisdom beyond his years. Listen to your father. Love your father. Respect your father. And especially if he points you to Jesus Christ. But especially if he points you to the fear of the Lord and to know the Lord more than anything else. Because that's the most important thing a father can give. This is faith in Christ. Let's stand.